Hello everyone, this is Ohio Dan. I wanted to make what should be a fairly short video about something that I've noticed with the 2020 election, especially among Trump supporters, and something they seem to miss from the 2016 election that I think is different in 2020 and just seems to get passed over. And that is, Trump in 2016 managed to beat one of the least electable candidates ever nominated for the office of president, barely. Now, some people will say, they'll look at the electoral map from 2016 and they'll say, well, no, Trump won in a landslide and he had all these electoral votes. Yeah, but that came from just a few key battleground states: Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Florida, and to an extent Ohio, although the election really wasn't that close here. The thing about it is, in 2016, you had a Democratic candidate that basically cheated just to get the nomination, basically conspired with the leaders of her party to basically campaign against Bernie Sanders so that she could be their nominee for president. And you had a lot of dirt, of course, on Hillary before that. You had her, with Benghazi, the email scandal, I guess you could call it a scandal with the people in the 90s, the women that accused Bill Clinton of doing certain things to them, where she tried to basically shut that up. It's obvious to anyone, even to a lot of Democrats, it was obvious. It's like, I don't see how it couldn't be obvious to them that she is a very corrupt politician. And because of that, she was one of the least electable candidates, I would say, in presidential history to be nominated by a major party. I think that's a fair statement to make, even going back throughout history. And yet Trump barely beat her in a few key states to win the 2016 election. And he actually failed to win the popular vote. Now, my view of the popular vote is, if you don't win 50%, you didn't win the popular vote. A lot of people don't seem to interpret it that way, which doesn't make sense to me. They'll say Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, even though she only won around 48% of the vote. So I don't really believe that. I think you have to win over 50% to win the popular vote. But she did have more votes in total than Trump did. And this is one of the worst potential candidates that a major party has ever nominated. So I just don't think that it's very likely that Trump will beat Biden. And I'm going to go into that just a little bit here. If you look at the 2016 polls, yes, most polls were wrong in predicting the 2016 election, but not by as wide of a margin as people think. And I'm going to put the RealClearPolitics data up on here. And if you look, Hillary was supposed to win at a national level, the popular vote. Hillary was supposed to have just over 3 percentage points more of the vote than Trump. And she ended up with 2.1% more of the votes than Trump. So the difference was just over 1% in the national forecast for how many votes Hillary was going to get versus Trump. Now, what people who think Trump is going to win in 2020 could say, and they do have evidence to support this, is, but Dan, in the 2016 election, Trump was way behind in the polls in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, and he won those states. That's true. So he did overcome, an 8 to 10 point deficit, or at least a 6 to 8 point deficit, depending on the exact numbers, in those battleground states, in those states that Hillary was expected to win. But still, if you look at the overall numbers, I just think that it's insurmountable. I realize it's the state level that matters in terms of calculating the electoral votes, not the national polls. But when one candidate has such a major lead, if the polls are at all accurate, that candidate's going to win. If you look, the numbers may change by the time I post this video. But again, Hillary Clinton was expected to win in 2016 by about 3 points. And she had more of the popular vote by about 2 points. Biden's up by 7 to 8 points. And again, that's fluid, and that may change even by the time I post this video. I'm sure it will change over time. But that is almost insurmountable. There's never really been a case where a candidate received 6 to 8 percentage points, or even if it's 4 or 5 percentage points more than the second place candidate and still lost the Electoral College. Maybe there's an example of that way back that I'm not aware of, but I don't think so. It has to be relatively close, and it's not. And, you could argue, well, the polls are just wrong, and that's possible, but I don't think they're going to be wrong to that degree. So it's not really looking good for Trump's reelection, in my opinion. It looks to me like Biden's going to win. My assessment is basically that unless Biden makes an absolute fool of himself in the debates, or the Democrats decide that they don't want him as a candidate, which is really too late for that now because they've had the convention. As long as Biden is able to run for office, as long as there's no reason that he wouldn't be the nominee anymore, then he's going to be their nominee. So unless he basically just completely makes a fool out of himself somehow, he will almost certainly win the election. The way that I see it now, Trump is not going to win re-election. All the negative effects of dealing with the coronavirus and the race riots, and that's basically what they are. You could call them demonstrations in some cases, but at least some of the situations that we've had have been riots. With all the racial strife and all the negative stuff that the media loves to heap on to Trump, that will be the focus instead of Biden. And I think that even if Biden makes a lot of gaffes, and this is one thing that I think you will see, almost certainly see specifically at some point in these debates, if they happen, Biden will make a gaffe. He'll say something that doesn't make any sense. And what the media will do is they will say, well, that was Trump's fault because Trump lied. Trump lied and Biden was responding to that lie, so it really wasn't a gaffe. You're going to see that. The media will do everything they can to spin the idea that Trump is the one that's stupid and Biden is the good guy. And Biden's of sound mind and Trump isn't. You're going to see a lot of that trying to spin what actually happens if there is a conventional style of debate. It's not some e-debate where everybody's reading from prepared statements, something ridiculous like that. If they can't use the coronavirus to cancel the debates, basically, as an excuse for that, which could also easily happen, then you're going to see the media trying as hard as they possibly can to blame Biden's gaffes on Trump somehow. They will make that attempt if it's a two podiums on the same stage style of traditional or conventional debate, as the presidential debates have been in the past. Even if it's a little bit different because of the coronavirus, if they have that type of debate, Biden will make a gaffe, and he'll probably do so repeatedly, and they'll blame Trump for it. That's one prediction that I have for this election. But here's the point, guys. If Biden appears even slightly more electable than Hillary Clinton did through this whole election process, Biden will most likely beat Trump in the election. All he has to do is basically not be one of the worst presidential candidates ever, and he'll beat Trump, because Hillary almost beat Trump. If you look at the swing states, if you look at the states that were in contention, Trump barely did enough to win. He barely won some of those states. Even a candidate that's even slightly less unappealing is probably going to beat Trump, especially with the media and the virus and all the racial strife. The media will do everything they can to blame Trump for everything like they normally do, and they're going to paint Biden in the best light possible. If they're able to make him look better than Hillary did, what makes you think he's not going to win? And so the whole reason why I kind of wanted to talk about this briefly is many Trump supporters, whatever brand they are, conservatives or right-wingers or, wherever they fit on the political spectrum, I think are in a severe state of denial about our current state of affairs. They continue to believe that Trump has far more support than what he actually does. Just like they believe that he could somehow save the political system from itself while he was in office. Just like they believe that, he's going to drain the swamp. How has that really happened? And so I think the truth is that the Democrats lost in 2016 due to their own corruption and failure to nominate an electable candidate. That's why Trump won. Unless potential voters come to view Biden in this same light, Trump's not going to win again in 2020. The political system that we have, guys, and this is kind of an additional point, but the political system that we have in my opinion, is too corrupt for anybody to come in and drain the swamp. It's too far gone. Everybody who is entrenched in the political system is going to resist that. And the left is just going to continue to use the media. They're going to continue to use everything they can to poison people against Trump, to poison people against anybody that would try to do what Trump is doing in terms of making serious reforms to the system. They're not going to allow that to happen. And like I say, the numbers is just, man, in order for Trump to win, the numbers are going to have to change so much. And yeah, I know nothing's counted until Election Day, but I just don't see it happening, guys. I don't think Trump's going to win unless Biden makes such a fool out of himself in the debates, or maybe there's a scandal and he gets Me Too'd and it's too late to not have Biden as the nominee. And actually that gets more people that are concerned about those issues to vote for Trump instead, to not think that Biden's a good solution, or at least not come out and vote for Biden. Unless there's a scandal of some sort, or Biden makes an absolute fool out of himself in the debates to the point that the media can't even try to pretend that it's Trump's fault somehow, I don't think Biden's going to lose. I think Biden's going to be the president. My prediction, guys, I don't like this, and I hope that I'm wrong, and if I am, you can laugh at me, is that you're going to have a lot of shock Trump supporters. You're going to have a lot of shock Trump supporters that didn't realize how precarious Trump's position was, that didn't realize that he barely beat, in 2016, one of the worst presidential candidates ever, from a major party at least. They don't get that. They think Trump can just be able to continue to get all this grassroots support and that there's a silent majority that will support Trump. I don't think so. I think that with everything the media has done over the last 4 years, and the Democratic Party, just even if they make Biden look like only slightly more palatable than Hillary Clinton, Biden's going to win. The Democrats are going to win. I just don't think Trump's going to get reelected. Like I say, I hope I'm wrong in some ways. I don't know that Trump is actually, again, going to be able to really make the reforms that he needs to make. But it's not going to happen, guys. I think that Biden's going to win. If he looks at all better than Hillary Clinton, Trump's not going to win this election. And again, my view is that in 2016, Trump won because of who the Democrats nominated. If Biden's even slightly more successful than that, Trump's not going to win re-election. And like I say, I don't look forward to it. I don't see it as a good thing, but I think you're going to see a lot of shock Trump supporters on Election Day and shortly thereafter, because this sort of confidence that Trump is going to win because the silent majority has his back, not with everything the media is doing, not with all the weapons that are being used against Trump, not with everything the media will do to try to spin Biden as the better candidate. I don't think it's going to end well for Trump supporters. I don't think that Trump can win re-election, honestly. Unless things change drastically, I think Biden's going to win the election. And again, if I'm wrong, you can laugh at me. But that's what I see happening this November. That's what I see happening in the 2020 election.